So the title of this morning's message, I have to say, didn't come from me. I was in I'm a part of a prayer group of pastors, and we were just talking, and I told them what this morning's message was going to be about, and that is, what has God taught me in the last year? And one of the pastors jokingly said, I have a great title for you. Hindsight is 2020. I went, I love that. That's good. So I'm going with it. So hindsight is 2020. And I say that because we all know, we've all experienced those times when we go through a difficult time. Sometimes, it's hard to see God and how He's working. We don't quite, we question and we don't quite see it. We're caught up in the circumstances, or it hasn't played out yet. But if we look back, it's often when we look back in hindsight that we go, oh my word, God was working. And we see God sometimes more clearly in hindsight than we do when we're in the middle of something. And I get that. That's pretty much life, in that. So I'm asking the question this morning, and it's kind of leading us into maybe next week's series that we begin next week. But I'm asking the question this morning, what has God taught us in the last? Because, God never wastes this time. God has had some incredible lessons going on in our lives in the midst of this last year and a half, and I have to say that God usually teaches us best in more difficult times, doesn't He? Because when things are easy, we don't think about it as much. Things are good. We reach out to God more when we're going through a tough time, and it's in those times that we're actually many times willing to listen better and hear. And so I think God teaches us actually more in the tough times than He does in the easy times. So what did God teach you in the last year? What have we learned? And that can be very personal. It can be some general things that we all can go, hey, yeah, well, me too, And so I put the question out. I had opportunity to talk to some individuals as that just came about, meeting with different people this week. I said, hey, by the way, while I got you here, let me ask you a question. And then I put it out kind of at the last minute as an email to the entire church, asking the question, what has God taught you? What's one thing? I had to keep it to one thing. What is one thing that God taught you this past year? And I'm just so thankful that so many people shared. And this morning's message really isn't a message sermon as much as it is a message through testimony. Your testimony. You've helped me. Many of you have helped write in this morning's message. And so I'm just going to start with one for me because it's very different. One that it's not about the pandemic actually at all. But it is definitely something we all experienced during 2020. So here's the one thing that God really taught me and had to work in me during this past year. And it was this awareness in my life and in truth as I was looking around, and I think in many lives of Christians, that I began to discover that our politics and our faith were becoming way too intertwined. You know what I mean? And here's how I know why and how. It's because when Christians start judging a person's salvation based on what political party they belong to or who they wanted for president, I have to tell you, then your politics and your theology are way too intertwined. You're not able to see clearly the differences in between them. And I found myself at moments being a part of that. And it was, so I'm not talking so much about the pandemic as I am about the elections of 2020. And I got to tell you, if we can't unravel that, then I think we become pretty spiritually unhealthy. So as I was getting caught up in this and having conversations with people from a lot of different points of view, even in my own home, right? And then I was seeing you and other people and family members, what was being posted on social media, I really had to take a step back. And I went back to Jesus and our example in all things, right? And I just wanted, the question came to my mind. It's kind of a curiosity question. I hopefully God planted it in there. What did Jesus actually say about his government and the politics of the time, and how much time did he actually spend really talking about this? And it turns out it was very little. He spoke about taxes, and that's only because somebody was trying to trap him. And his answer to that from Matthew 22 was, give back to Caesar what's Caesar's, but give to God what's God's. By the way, keep it clear. Keep it separate. That was part of the message that I was going there. But that was about it. I mean, he treated government soldiers at times with respect. He even commended on an occasion a centurion's faith, and he even asked God to forgive them when they crucified him. Right? And I got to tell you, his government at the time, the Roman Empire, right? The government he lived in on this earth, it's a whole lot worse than ours. They weren't voting. They had no rights to vote. We do. It was a dictatorship. And I have to tell you, I haven't noticed people crucified on the side of the road as an example of disobeying the government lately. Or after Jesus' time and the church has started, at least not here in America, have they been throwing Christians to the lions, in the arenas. I do believe that there are Christians being persecuted to death in other parts of the world, that is happening, but not here. But here's the deal. See, Jesus spent most of his time focusing not on this kingdom, but on a different kingdom. It's one not of this world. And that's what he talked about. The coming kingdom that is and will be. The eternal kingdom that is his home, and because of him, it's our home as well. And it made me realize I was spending way too much time focusing on the wrong kingdom and not enough time on the right one. So what did Jesus teach me? To seek first his kingdom and righteousness, and to spend my time in these crazy days focusing and talking about that, because that's the only thing that's going to last and that will matter, and it's what Jesus did. Of course, there are other biblical passages. Pray for those, pray for our leaders, pray for those in charge. That God knows fully well who the leaders were and are. They're not there without his allowing them to be there. God will use them for his ends, whether they realize it or not. And guess what? They will come and go. But God is always in charge. No matter what, whether or not you and I can see it or even understand it, he's in charge. We have an online book club called Page Turners, and they have just finished reading a book called God's Smuggler. It's by Brother Andrew, and it's a true faith story of someone trying to get Bibles to people who couldn't get them or weren't allowed to have them, actually, in our world, going over the 20th century in different places, and communism and the whole thing, but you're not allowed to have Bibles, so they would try to smuggle Bibles into Christians who desperately wanted them and needed them. But here's a quote from the book that my wife shared with me. And it says, as we stress the importance of a positive ministry among the communists, that's when he was doing that. If a man seems to be harboring personal resentments against a certain government, or if he has more to say about the evils of communism than the goodness of God, then we suspect that he is a soldier poorly armed for the battle before us. I went, wow, what a powerful quote. So I had to ask myself, and I would encourage you to do the same, during this last year, have I spent more time talking about the government, whether it was the election or COVID related, than I have about the goodness of God? And I think I have. You know, I've not always done that. I've talked more about government than the goodness of God, you know. And so I've committed myself to what God has taught me, to focus more on God's kingdom and a whole lot less on this one. I will be the best citizen I know, you know, that I know how to be. I will vote my conscience before God. But I need to spend more time telling others about another kingdom, an eternal one that they can belong to. So that's one of the things that God has been teaching me over this last year. And except for maybe one item, the rest of this message is not from me, it's from some of you. When I asked the question and the responses, so I really, I just put the question out there, like I said, and am including it. I said I needed to use it for this morning, so I am including some of you, and you didn't maybe realize it. Some others are very personal, and so I've asked a particular level of permission. But here's what some of you said, and I want to use this as a way to encourage us this morning that there's good that came out of this. There's lessons that God has taught us out of this, you know. And Michelle over here, you know, it's just God taught me to be truly thankful. What to be truly thankful for, you know. I thought that 2020 would be the year I got everything I wanted. What are you, 12? No. Just pick it on Michelle here. You got a lot of good things. Amen. We celebrated with you, right? But here's the lesson. Instead, it showed me what to really appreciate what I already have. Oh man, if we could just do that, right? Sometimes it's like we complain about what we don't have and we forget about what God has already given us. So thank you for that good word, Michelle. And that's about the way we focus, isn't it? You know, good lesson. Rosario Romer, patience and to fully trust Him. I think there was a lot of that that's going. You're going to hear that time and again. I was talking with Sue Broder, and we were talking about patience. I'll get to that in a minute. Some of you know Sue's story because she's told it, and so she wouldn't mind if I'm telling it again because we have shared that on numerous occasions. There was a time in Sue's life where she was homeless. She was an alcoholic, and she lost kind of custody of her son. And God just turned her whole life around. You know, she has been a faithful member of our church. And, you know, part of the deal was, as in the time of this COVID, you know that alcoholism has gone crazy, right? And here's Sue going, you know what? And I'm not saying it was easy, but I have stayed true. And God is just teaching me patience in the midst of that, patience with all the, you know, waiting, mask, all of that. But she writes, she also told me this, that when things get tough, instead of returning to my old ways, God has told me that basically to trust, there's certain people I need to trust in my life and ask for help, right? That's a good lesson to learn. And that when instead of returning to my old ways, so there's the context of her life, right? There are people I can turn to instead. Bad times are not often as permanent as we think they are. And God, being my higher power, has given me the tools I need to stay focused on the big picture. Amen. That's an important lesson, right? I was talking with Bobby Nelson this week, and you know, for him it was about serving. If we don't listen to God's call, we'll slip into the abyss that will keep us from receiving the gift that He offers. God has sent a message that we must love one another, and 2020 was a time of really questioning our mortality even, a time of looking at our neighbor and asking, are you okay? How can I help? It was a time of lost freedoms and government-imposed restrictions, the likes of which none of us probably have ever experienced. And I look at my neighbor and I seek to find a way to benefit them in this time of need. And I don't judge when I may not agree with their point of view or their political position. I hear in my heart, love your neighbor as yourself. So to serve someone who is in need, to me, is to serve God in the way He has commanded me to. And we're talking about I said, explain to me about the judging part. And, it was just recognizing, and we all know, even here, we're all over the place with our ideas about this pandemic. And there are extremes, like this is, this is much ado about nothing. And I said, man, just please don't say that to somebody who's lost a loved one due to COVID, because it's really, really insensitive and offensive. It is something. Maybe it's not as much as you think. We're making more out of it than you think we should, but you're over here. People saying, if you get vaccinated, you have now, just go to the book of Revelations, you have just taken the mark of the beast. And I'm like, oh my word. How unbiblical do you think, what's your view of God here? Because I hear Jesus saying, my people know my voice and no one can snatch them from my hand. And apparently I got snatched. And God didn't tell me about it. And God is not going to allow all of His people to unknowingly take the mark of the beast. It's just not going to, that's just not who God is. What's your view of God in this? So apparently I'm going to hell in some people's mind now. So, but see, I get judgy with that stuff because I want to go, what are you really saying here? And then there's everything in between, masks, no masks, vaccinations, I'm not getting vaccinated. You know what? He's just saying, I just have to learn. I'm just not going to judge anybody's. I just am going to help. I'm just going to serve. I'm just going to do what God calls me to do. And I'm not going to get caught up in this. I have my opinions. I went, Bobby, I appreciate that. I think that's a lesson for us, Sharon O'Brien, we mentioned her earlier, she just said to trust God in all circumstances, to focus on Him and not the circumstances. I went, amen. That's what God has taught her, and I go, that's a lesson. Some are more personal, like Lisa Convar, who is like, she's a nurse and just felt her calling to that being, what God taught me is no matter what obstacles are in my path, that's what you've called me to be. So that gets but here's her last statement. He's got me. See, we talk about God's in control, but it's also recognizing, what? He's not only got this, He's got me. That's good. That's good. Lisa Sylvia, our treasurer, said, God has shown me that truly, and I just put it in the context, truly none of this matters. All the news, whether fake or real, means nothing. It will all diminish in the end. That's Solomon going, all of this stuff, you know what, it's all but a vapor, it's gone. So she's not really saying that it doesn't affect people. She's just saying in the end, none of this will matter. 100 years from now in your life, none of this will have mattered, right? The only thing that matters, she says, is my faith in Jesus and His promise of eternal life with God. May we be courageous and obedient and share Him with the world. He is the hope. That's it. He's our only hope. More personal level was Joanne Roberts. She just sent, you've seen her off and on. She's had a lot of health issues that have taken place last year and still currently. So she says, during the course of this pandemic, I've learned to rely on God more. I think she was probably already doing a pretty good job, actually, in her life, but this year she had to do that even more. Because 2020 was definitely not my best year. I began the year in January with a brain tumor in my pituitary gland and is operated on to see if it was cancerous. Praise be to God, it was not. However, it is a very rare type that has to be monitored because if it grows, it will cause serious problems. And there are several other things to deal with in 2021, other health issues. But God has blessed me with His faithfulness. So I leave those things with Him. My patience has increased as I see so many others with the problems they have to deal with. Our world has changed dramatically, but our Heavenly Father remains the same, which gives me great peace. He's blessed me more than I can say. I'm not looking forward to some of the tests and things that are coming up in her life, but I do know who's in charge of the future, and I know who is holding my hand. Amen. John here, in typical John Berman form, this is what I call a Johnism, he was, like, I'm glad you said only one, because in truth, they've gone through a lot, he and Jane, this last year, and there's a lot of things that stories to tell. But I like this. He said, God taught me how to use hindsight to develop foresight. Now think about that, because I'm talking about that we see God in hindsight. The purpose of looking back and seeing God at work is to actually help us in the next time circumstances happen where we're having a hard time seeing God. We got to look back and go, oh, wait a minute. It's given me the foresight, but wait a minute. He helped me here. He helped me here. Why am I thinking he might not hear? So, and that's important, right? Gary, thank you. Trusting God with more patience and endurance, and you have health concerns, and you know what? There's lessons here. Lucy, his wife Lucy, I went, oh man, this one, God has taught me to be more flexible. Whew. If there was any season in my life, in ministry, that I had to be more flexible, it was this past year. We looked at, all of a sudden, we couldn't meet here, and I am so proud and thankful of the team that came together that allowed us, we never missed a Sunday, that allowed us to stream with literally 2-3 days. That's all we had, and we pulled it off. And then we got better at it. But we, even as a church, as a board, we're like, there's no church is coming up with a 5-year plan right now. We used to. Nobody's doing that because we're clueless. God's not, but we're clueless. And during the midst of the worst of this, it was we can't even plan more than a month. As restrictions are changing, as rules, we can't even plan. We have no idea what even next month looks like. We're getting, it's looking a little bit clearer and beginning to get there, but talk about having to be flexible in our personal lives and in work and in all kinds of things, right? Paula, thank you. Patience, learn that God needs to be in control. We need to give him that control, right? Sue D'Antuano, same thing, patience. My wife, when I posed the question to her when I first started talking about this, her first response was just, what has God taught me? Everything changes. It's a harder lesson, but we recognize things could change like this. I mean, we already knew it, right? Some of us have experienced changes in our lives that have happened on the spur of a moment, but everything changed very, very quickly. And then, after she said that, within a few days, we experienced it. Now, you're going to think this is trivial. For us, it is not. We were grieving we're still grieving. We were grieving this past few days, and we haven't lost a loved one or had to put a pet down or anything like that. Our favorite restaurant in New Bedford, where we grew up with pizza, is closing. And this is I know this is silly, maybe silly to you. That's okay. But there's a lot of emotion tied with this because there's a lot of history there. And nobody else makes this. It's not like I can go to another pizza place because nobody else actually makes this particular pizza the way they make it. We have not found it ever. I've been eating it for over 50 years. Okay? When they opened in 1964, I was a young kid. My parents started, and this special type of pizza, linguiça pizza there, we have brought some of you to that place. This was served at our rehearsal dinner for our wedding. My son's 16th birthday party was down there with me and Ed's Pizza. And so yesterday we got to have lunch with my sister. I haven't seen her and since the beginning of the year, down in Fairhaven, and we kind of said, all right, we got some time to kill because they don't open till 4, but we're picking up pizza to bring home because they're open till the 29th. And we just recognize everything changes. And every time something changes, there's a loss. Right? Change can be good, and we can enjoy it, and we can look forward to it, but change always means that there's a loss of something. And a lot of changes are hard, and we've had to deal with a lot of changes. And in truth, they've affected our world, our nation, our homes. In particular, I focused on it has changed our church. Therefore, we're going to have to deal with certain changes, even as we move towards post-quarantine and restrictions, right? But my wife said, and that's why, anything that you put your security in, unless it's Jesus, is on fragile ground. I'm thinking of the parable Jesus taught about the wise man built his house upon a rock, and the foolish man built his house on sand. Anything, and hear this, anyone other than Jesus, that you put your security in for your life, it's not solid ground. There are people that we love and they're a part of our lives, and we all know they can be gone tomorrow. And they're very good. It's very good security when we're together, and they're not. They're marriages, but circumstances, retirement accounts, my job, you name it. Anything you put your security in that is other than Jesus, you can lose like this, because everything changes. Only He is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So we build our house on solid ground, which is Jesus Christ. Amen. Heather talked about perseverance, and we've had to learn that. And I talked to her. She stopped by this week. She's our financial secretary, so she stopped by to pick up your offerings. And I asked her the question, and she said, I've had to learn perseverance. She's head of the company that she's worked for from her dad. And I thought of James chapter 1 when we were talking, which says, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds. Hey, woohoo, another trial. It's like, it doesn't work that way, but this is what James tells us, because you know that the testing of your faith produces what? Perseverance. It's not done there. Let perseverance finish its work. Why? So that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. That's the goal. Mature followers of Jesus Christ. Right? Let perseverance have its full effect. That's a good one. Yeah. One of the things that was for me is I learned we're still the church, even in the midst of all of this. And we did that in so many ways. And I'm not going to elaborate on that, because what I want to do is next Sunday is Pentecost, right? Coming of the Holy Spirit, birthday of the church. And I'm putting together something for us to see how God used us in this last year and how we were the church. And that's going to lead us into a series where we're going back to Acts chapter 2 to really ask the question in that early church, what were the strengths of that first church? Because they need to be our strengths today. Okay? But I'm going to close with one more. This one is very personal, and it's not for me, and this is where I asked her how much of this I could share. She says if they don't know the whole story, it's not going to help, so she was willing to share this, and it was from Sharon Roberts. So context here is Sharon lost her mother in the midst of this. She passed away, and sadly, in the midst of that, it caused turmoil between her and her siblings in all of this. That was very hard. So she wrote, as you know, I've struggled with family issues this past year. I was depressed, anxious, not sleeping, not trusting, and missing my mother so much. God, when I let Him, that's a good caveat, when we let Him, God, when we let Him, reminded me that as far as things I could do, I need to get along with others. That He actually expected me to pray for the very people who were making my life so miserable and difficult. Wow. You know Jesus does tell us to do that, right? Pray for those who persecute you. Pray, Well, I did that, but it wasn't easy. Eventually, even though I still struggled with this command, I started to find some peace in my life. So much so that I actually reached out to my sisters and to figure things out, see if we could figure this out. 2 of them still reject me, but one of them met with me, and the first thing she did when she saw me was to hug me and to ask for my forgiveness. Wow. We're in touch and getting together regularly. With the other 2, I really don't even think about it that much anymore, because I am assured by God's words that I have done everything I know how to do. As far as I can be at peace, you can be at peace with anyone, do that. But sometimes it's up to us. I still pray for them, but now I can sleep at night. Thanks for all this is the part where she thanked me, for all the messages through this crazy time that led me to God's words and teachings. And there's little hearts there, just want you to know. But when you let God do what he does, everything falls into place. And I wrote back and I said, yep, and when we do what he tells us, thereby showing that we love him. Go figure, good things happen. How do you want the peace in this? Do what God asks, even if it's hard. See, God does this because he knows what's best for us, right? And here's a testimony, a hard one, but there's something God really taught me during this most difficult time. So I've heard other people say things like, it wasn't an answer to this question. It's just been in conversations over the last year. Things like, I'm spending more time with my family. We're actually eating together. We didn't do that before. We were so busy, And so I just want to leave you with this. Here's the question. So how are we going to make sure that what God taught us during this time will continue to guide us? As we move into this post-quarantine world, what lessons have taken place that God has taught you, especially the ones that can easily be lost again if we start getting busier and less time at home or less time alone with God, or whatever it is? It'd be easy to go back into a place where I give those things up. You know what? That's what I want us to close in prayer with, just to have God help us keep what's important and what he's taught us continuing in our life. And if he's taught us that during this time and because of this time, it's really important that with times we don't go back to what was. We have a new normal where God has actually got a greater part of our life in us. Right? So Lord, we come before you. I just want to give you thanks for the body of Christ here. Thank you for the testimonies. Thank you for the things that you have taught us, and I'm sure there's a whole lot more. But God, if you have taught us something, I just pray personally, God, if there's anything you have taught me that is that important, help me not to lose that as things kind of become less restrictive and more open and all of that. As I move forward, God, help me. Give me the power to know this was important. This is what I learned, and I have to keep that. But I need to do that in your strength, God, so I give it to you as we continue to move forward in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. So we're going to close, and you know what? It's one of the lessons that people said. You know what? God's got this. We're not alone. We are never alone, are we? So Dave and Michelle, close us out.
When I walk through deep waters, I know that you will be with me. When I'm standing in the fire, before me. You will never leave me. In the midst of deep sorrow, I see your light is breaking through. The dark of night will not overtake me. I am pressing into you. Lord, you fight my every battle, and I will not fear. I am not alone. I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. I am not alone. I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. You amaze me, redeem me. You call me as your own. You amaze me, redeem me. You call me as your own. You amaze me, redeem me. You call me as your own. You amaze me, redeem me. You call me as your own. You're my strength, you're my defender. You're my refuge in the storm. Through these trials, you've always been faithful. You bring healing to my soul. I am not alone. I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. I am not alone. I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. I am not alone. I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. I am not alone. I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. I am not alone. I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. I am not alone. I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me.
Amen. So let's, as we go from here, first off, kids, stick around for children's sermon. But you know what? Why don't we just let that be our benediction? I don't know what you're going to face this week or what I'm going to face, in all honesty. But just remember, you're not alone, ever, with God. Amen? Go in His presence. If you're sticking around, stick around. I'm going to wait just a minute. I got to go print something out, and if you're going to do this at another time or not today, then I'm just going to wait a few minutes as we kind of shift, and be right back. All right? Amen. Well, good morning, everybody. Good to be together this morning. I'm going to talk about Thanksgiving a little bit, and I know it's not November and it's not Thanksgiving, but we're going to talk about things we're thankful for. So I want you to think of something that you are thankful for, and I want you to just turn to somebody else. I'm assuming you're not alone. Maybe you are, or just yell it out loud if you are, but maybe to your parents, brother, sister. Name one thing that you're thankful for this morning. Good. All right. Now, I want you to think of maybe something unpleasant that you're not thankful for. Okay, what's something you're not thankful for this morning? All right. Now, here's the thing. The Bible actually says we're to be thankful in all things, everything. So it's like easy to be thankful when things are good and the good things and the things I like. And we're not so thankful about the bad things, are we? But listen to what Paul says in Ephesians 5:20. Always giving thanks to God the Father for just the good things? No. He says for everything in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. So everything includes the good things, the easy things to be thankful for, but it also includes the things we're typically not so thankful for. It's not easy to be thankful for, the unpleasant or the bad things in life. So why would God want us to thank Him for everything, meaning the good and the bad things? Well, you know what? It's let me tell you about a time something bad, not terribly bad, happened, but ultimately I was thankful to God. There was a time, it was right when Kathy and I were first married. I was in school, and we were still looking. She had just got a new job. We didn't have a lot of money, and actually we had very, very little. And we got up one morning, and there was a flat tire on my car. I had a flat tire, bad thing, not thankful. And I'm worried because I don't know how much it's going to cost to fix the tire. I take it to a garage, and I said, here, and you got to fix the tire. And Kathy, I had dropped her off at work. I put the spare on the car, a spare, but I had to just take the good tire to be fixed. And I got back to the house, the apartment we were living in, and there's a devotional that we use around here called the Daily Bread. And this is the passage of scripture that I read. Seek first God's kingdom and his righteousness. And it says, all these things will be added to you as well. And all those things Jesus had just talked about were things about worrying about food and clothes, and look at the birds, God takes care of them, and you're more important to God than they are, and the flowers, they look beautiful, and God takes care of them. He's going to take care of you. Just have faith. Oh man, talk about God hitting me right between the eyes. I had to just trust God. All right, so I go back to the garage. I say, thank you, God, even for the flat tire. I go back, and I go to the garage, and they handed me the tire, and they said, there's nothing wrong with it. It's perfectly fine. Okay, how much for just looking at it? No charge. It didn't cost me anything. And it was fine, and yet I learned a big lesson. So sometimes God takes the bad things and He teaches us something good. It's easy to thank God for the good things, but try to remember to thank God for the hard things, because He often uses those for good in our lives. All right, so let's pray. God, thank you for your blessings. Thank you for the good times, but we're even going to thank you for the difficult times today, because we know you can even use them to teach us, to make us more like Jesus, and to bring good out of them. Thank you so much. Well, guys, have a great day. I miss you. I hope to see you soon. See ya.